The purpose of this recording is to demonstrate how Data Instant Replay, Replay Profiles, CompCU, and Oracle RAC can be used to clone a RAC database and mount that database on a different RAC cluster. The concept shown in this demonstration can be applied to standalone databases and user-managed backups. This diagram represents a two-node RAC cluster with nodes Galaxy and Bronco. This RAC production cluster will be the source cluster in this demonstration. Its database will be cloned and mapped to the target RAC cluster, consisting of nodes Selene and Viper. I'll demonstrate the cloning of the RAC database by starting a process that inserts records into table imp in the source database. While the insert process is running, a shell script will be invoked to create the database clone using a number of steps. The first two steps will verify that one of the source production RAC nodes and the production RAC database are running. Next, the production RAC database will be placed in begin backup mode so a consistent image of the database can be taken. The shell script then makes a call to Storage Center via CompCU to create a replay of the RAC database. To create a replay of an Oracle database, the database must be defined within a replay profile or consistency group in Storage Center. The consistency group instructs Storage Center to suspend all I/O on all volumes within the consistency group while the replays are created. Once the replay of all the volumes in the consistency group are made, Storage Center resumes I/O on the volumes. The suspension of the I/O guarantees that the replays will be consistent. After the replays are created, new volumes, called view volumes, will be created from the replays. Those view volumes are then mapped to the target RAC cluster. One could create multiple view volumes from a replay, creating multiple snapshots or clones of the same database. However, for this demonstration, we will be only creating one view volume for each of the replays. Also, since the replays are created while the insert job is running, the total record count of table imp in the clone database will be the record count at the time the clone was made, or the time the replay was made, and not the final record count from the insert job, which will be the total record count in the production table imp. After the replays are created, the source production database is taken out of begin backup mode. Another call to CompCU will be made to create the view volumes and map them to the target RAC cluster. The view volumes will be mapped to the target RAC cluster using the same LUNs as used by the source RAC cluster. Next, a device scan is performed on the target RAC cluster, and the new devices, which are ASM disks, are then mounted to the RAC cluster. Finally, the clone database is started and recovered on the target RAC cluster. Remember that the database was in begin backup mode when the replays were taken. Therefore, when the database starts on the target site, the database must be taken out of begin backup mode and crash recovery performed. I'll pause the recording momentarily to open a session to Storage Center to show how the RAC database, its volumes, and replay profile are defined. Here is a connection to Storage Center 6, which hosts the RAC database. The RAC database consists of two volumes, CS Data 1 and CS FRA 1. Those volumes are mapped to Cluster 1 consisting of nodes Galaxy and Bronco. And they do have a replay associated with them, but the replay has expired and is no longer available. So we need to create a new replay for those volumes. That replay will be created by the clone job. Once those replays are created, view volumes will be created from those replays and stored in folder RAC views. At this time you can see that folder RAC views is empty. It will be populated with two volumes once the mapping of the two view volumes is created. Let's scroll down and take a look at the replay profiles. The replay profile that is used in this example is Oracle 11G R2 RAC. There are two volumes associated with this replay profile, CS Data 1 and CS FRA 1. Those are the volumes we saw above. So when the replay is created, both of these volumes will have their I/O suspended until the replays on all of those volumes are created. Once the replay is created for all of those volumes, the I/O will be resumed on those volumes. And if you click on the Volumes tab, you can see that indeed this consistency group, Oracle 11G R2 RAC, does consist of the volumes that we saw above, CS Data 1 and CS FRA 1. Now I'll pause the recording again to open the necessary PuTTY sessions for the demonstration. There are 4 PuTTY sessions open for this demonstration. The top sessions are connected to the source RAC database, consisting of nodes Galaxy and Bronco. The bottom sessions are connected to the target RAC cluster, consisting of nodes Selene and Viper. The sessions on the left will be used to perform a select count star against table imp in the production RAC cluster and in the target RAC cluster. The session on the upper right will be used to perform the insert into table imp in the production RAC cluster, and the right bottom session will be used to execute the script to clone the database. Let's begin the demonstration. The first thing we'll do in the demonstration is to show that the target cluster is up and running and all resources are available with the exception of the database. You can see that the data and FRA groups are unavailable and all of the other resources are online. Let's prepare our sessions to perform the insert and also to perform the cloning of the database. Before we perform both of those, though, we will log into the production database and perform a select count star against table imp to show that there are 0 records available in that table. As you can see, there are no rows in TableImp in production. Let's prepare ourselves with the command to insert the records. So we'll invoke the script here, which will add 1,000,000 rows to TableImp in schema test user, and we'll supply a wait time between commits of 0 seconds. So we'll add as many records as we can without any delay in between the commits. Now let's get ready to execute the job to do the clone. Now, before we start that process, let's execute the insert script. Once that starts, we'll verify rows are being added by performing another select count star. Once we receive verification that rows are being added, we'll start the clone job. Okay, records are being inserted. Let's verify. Records are truly being added, so let's start the clone. Now, as the replays are being created, we'll perform another select count star to get an approximation of what the record count is at time of replay creation. Okay, replays are being created. The record count should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 270,000. Now with the job running, let's take a look at the Storage Center 6 to see the new replays and the mapping of those replays. We can see that a new replay was created just a minute or so ago. So I know that that replay now was created by this job. Let's see if those volumes, if the view volumes have been created for those replays. And they have. They've now been created and stored in folder RAC views, and we should be able to see the servers that they are mapped to. And indeed, they have been mapped to Viper and Selene. Let's go back to the PuTTY sessions for this demonstration. As you can see, the insert job has finished in production, so if I perform another record count, we should see 1,000,000 rows. And also, while we were looking at Storage Center, the clone job for that database has proceeded all the way to recovering the target database. And once media recovery completes on that database, we'll log into the database and perform a select count star against TableImp, and we should see a record count somewhere in the neighborhood of 260,000 to 305,000. Remember that the record count that we'll see will be the record count at the time the replay was created. And now finally the target database is being started and opened. Alright. Alright, the database is finally cloned. Let's verify the record count in the target database in table imp. So you can see the count is much closer to the select count star that was executed as soon as the compcu request was made to create the replay. So this concludes the demonstration of how to clone a RAC database using Storage Center replays.